Shock court finale. Sequin and Snake's divorce explodes. Judge slaps down a dropping $100,000 order. We'll now start the long single-flow narrative. The courtroom doors creaked open as a wave of reporters, camera flashes, and murmuring spectators filled the hallway, all waiting for the most explosive divorce showdown the reality TV world had ever seen. Shekinah stepped inside first, wearing a calm but calculated expression, the kind that hides storms beneath the surface. Every step she took across the polished marble floor echoed through the entire chamber, building tension like a ticking clock. Sarper entered moments later, surrounded by his team, wearing a stiff, unreadable face that hinted at pride, fear, and anger all woven together. He avoided her eyes, but the energy between them was thick enough to cut with a blade. This was not just a legal proceeding. This was the finale every viewer had been waiting for. A collision of unresolved battles, buried accusations, financial secrets, and months of emotional warfare that could no longer be contained behind Instagram captions or TV confessionals. The judge took his seat, glancing at both sides with the type of stern seriousness that instantly silenced the buzzing room. The cameras outside were not allowed in, but everyone knew the world would be watching the fallout. From the moment the gavel struck, the tension escalated. Shekinah's lawyer launched into a relentless timeline detailing expenses, transfers, lifestyle demands, and alleged manipulation, creating a picture of chaos beneath their glamorous appearance. Sarper's face tightened, jaw clenched, hands gripping the table so hard his knuckles turned white. His attorney fired back with claims of exaggeration, dramatization, and emotional pressure, insisting that Shekinah had twisted events into a narrative designed to destroy him publicly. But the judge wasn't here for theatrics. He wanted facts. Cold, clear, documented. And with every screenshot, every financial record, every message presented, the courtroom felt like it was heating up, as if the truth itself was burning through the polished walls. Spectators leaned forward in their seats, some holding their breath as each new detail raised the stakes higher. Shekinah remained stern, occasionally glancing at Sarper with a mixture of exhaustion and silent determination. Sarper struggled to hold his composure, shifting uncomfortably, wiping his palms on his suit as though trying to keep control of a story slipping away from him. The judge listened to every word without a single change in expression. When he finally leaned back, the entire courtroom froze. It was the moment that would define everything. He began speaking with a calm but razor-sharp tone, dissecting both sides' arguments, acknowledging the emotional volatility of their relationship, and emphasizing that the financial discrepancies could not be ignored. Sarper's breathing grew heavier. Shekinah didn't blink. Then came the hammer. The judge ruled that Sarper would be required to pay a stunning $100,000, a ruling so sudden and severe that gasps erupted from every corner of the courtroom. The energy shifted instantly. Reporters scrambled for their phones, spectators whispered in shock. Even the court officers raised their eyebrows. Sarper's eyes widened, disbelief washing over his face as though the ground beneath him had cracked open. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The judge had spoken and the decision was final. Shekinah exhaled gently, not celebrating, not gloating, just releasing months of tension that had built up like pressure behind a dam. Sarper slumped back in his chair, trying to process the fallout of the ruling. His lawyer whispered urgently, but he didn't seem to hear anything. The judge warned both parties that any outburst would result in immediate consequences, and the room fell into a stunned silence. Outside the courtroom, the chaos was even louder. Fans, bloggers, and news outlets exploded the moment the ruling was announced. People debated, argued, speculated, and analyzed every possible angle. Some sided with Shekinah, praising her strength and composure. Others defended Sarper, claiming the penalty was too severe. But everyone agreed on one thing. This wasn't just a divorce. This was a spectacle, a finale, a historic courtroom moment that would echo across every corner of the internet. As the doors opened again, Shekinah walked out first, keeping her head high, surrounded by cameras begging for statements. She offered only a few words, "I'm relieved. And I'm moving forward." Her voice was steady, but the weight behind those words shook the crowd. Sarper emerged minutes later, shielding his face behind dark sunglasses, refusing to answer questions, rushing to his car as reporters chased after him. The headlines were already forming. The world was already reacting. And this was only the beginning of the storm. The car door slammed as Sarper disappeared behind tinted windows, but the storm outside didn't fade. If anything, it intensified, swirling into a frenzy of speculation, outrage, and disbelief. Commentators on live streams dissected the ruling in real time. Fans clipped moments from inside the courthouse hallway, and every social platform turned into a battlefield of opinions. Meanwhile, inside the vehicle, Sarper sat frozen, staring ahead as though the world had tilted off its axis. His manager spoke rapidly, trying to reassure him, spinning strategies, crafting narratives, but the words dissolved into an indistinct haze. All he could hear echoing inside his mind was the number, $100,000. 100,000. The sum felt like a stamp of failure, a public branding that would haunt him across interviews, reality shows, and every corner of social media. Yet the worst blow wasn't the financial penalty. It was the irrevocable reality that the public now believed Shekinah's version more than his. His jaw tightened as the car sped through the city, flashes of cameras bouncing off the glass like lightning. He knew he had built his image with precision for years, sculpting a persona rooted in confidence and control. And now, within a single gavel strike, that image was cracking. Across town, Shekinah stepped into her attorney's office to breathe for the first time since the ruling. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the overwhelming release of months of pressure. She had fought hard, endured sleepless nights, relived painful memories, and questioned herself endlessly. And now, despite the chaos, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: certainty. Shekinah's lawyer reviewed the next steps, media statements, and legal follow-ups. But Shekinah wasn't listening closely. Her thoughts drifted back to the courtroom, to the moment the judge delivered the verdict. The reaction on Sarper's face lingered in her mind, not because she felt pity, but because it symbolized closure. She had lived in the shadow of emotional turbulence for too long, and finally, she was stepping away from it. Outside the building, fans cheered her name, holding signs of support, snapping photos, chanting encouragement. She offered a small wave, not out of showmanship but gratitude. The people cheering weren't celebrating the money. They were celebrating her strength, her endurance, her decision to walk away from a relationship that had consumed so much of her sanity. Meanwhile, Sarper team was already drafting statements. The PR specialist insisted they needed to respond immediately to control the narrative before it hardened. If you don't speak now, he warned, the public will shape the story without you. And once they decide who the villain is, it's impossible to erase it. Sarper leaned back, closing his eyes, knowing the truth in those words. But responding meant acknowledging the judgment, and acknowledging the judgment meant reopening wounds he wasn't ready to face. Still, silence was not an option. Eventually, he exhaled sharply and said, "Fine. Draft it. But I'm not apologizing for something I didn't do." The PR team exchanged uneasy glances. They knew this wasn't going to go smoothly. As evening fell, news channels replayed the courthouse footage repeatedly. Slow motion clips, expert commentary, reaction panels, every angle imaginable. Hashtags trended worldwide. Influencers created reaction videos. Podcasts announced emergency episodes. The story had become bigger than the relationship itself. It had become a symbol of accountability, resilience, and the messy reality behind the curated images that celebrities projected. But what no one knew, not the fans, not the press, not even some members of the legal teams, was that there were still details buried beneath the surface. Messages neither side had released. Conversations that had happened off camera. Secrets that, if revealed, could shift public opinion once again. Late that night, Shekinah sat by her window, city lights flickering below like distant stars. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to feel hopeful. But hope was fragile, and even though she felt victorious, she knew the story wasn't entirely over. Divorce cases rarely ended cleanly, and with Sarper's pride, resources, and stubborn resolve, she fully expected him to retaliate. Not violently, but publicly, strategically, and with the intent to reshape the narrative. On the other side of the city, Sarper stared at his reflection in a darkened window. His expression hardened with each passing moment. He wasn't ready to let the world believe he was defeated. Not after everything he had sacrificed. Not after everything he had built. He turned to his team and said quietly, "Prepare everything. This isn't ending today." And with that sentence, a new battle began, one not fought in court, but online, across screens, interviews, and social platforms, where truth and perception collided in unpredictable ways. Night settled over the city, but neither Shekinah nor Sarper found any rest. While fans celebrated online and gossip channels uploaded hour-by-hour breakdowns, both of them were preparing for the next phase of the storm, different storms bound to collide again. Sarper paced across his apartment, the lights dim, his phone buzzing nonstop with messages from producers, friends, haters, supporters, and strangers demanding his side of the story. Every notification felt like a small explosion. His pride was wounded, his reputation shaken, and the weight of $100,000 pressed on his chest like an invisible boulder. But the financial hit wasn't what cut deepest. It was the humiliation. The public humiliation. The idea that millions of people now saw him as the villain, the manipulator, the one exposed. He gripped the edge of the counter, knuckles whitening again, trying to steady his breathing. His manager urged him to sit down for a recorded statement, calm, controlled, sympathetic. Something that would nudge public sentiment without appearing defensive. But Sarper wasn't ready to sound calm. Not tonight. Not after the courtroom ripped open everything he had tried to protect. Meanwhile, Shekinah curled up on her couch, her phone held loosely in her hand as countless messages of encouragement flooded her inbox. Despite the support, her body still hummed with tension, her heart beating fast from the adrenaline of the day. She scrolled through the messages slowly, reading but not replying, letting the words wash over her. Her closest friend called, urging her to celebrate, but Shekinah only managed a small, tired laugh. The victory didn't feel like something to celebrate. It felt like a weight lifted, but also a reminder of how heavy that weight had been in the first place. She closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the early days of their relationship, the charm, the excitement, the passion that burned bright enough to blind her. And then she remembered the gradual dimming, the manipulation she didn't want to see, the slowly tightening grip that eventually became suffocating. The courtroom had been her final stand, but the emotional scars would take longer to fade. Across the city, Sarper sat down at last, phone in hand, camera set up. The PR team hovered nearby, adjusting lighting, reviewing statements, whispering strategy. Sarper brushed them off. He wanted to speak in his own voice, to reclaim control of the narrative, to show the world he wasn't broken. He hit record, his eyes fixed on the lens with a fierce intensity, his voice steady, trying to mask the cracks underneath. He spoke about disappointment, about feeling misunderstood, about loving deeply but clashing painfully. He insisted the financial ruling was unfair, that the portrayal of him was one-sided, and he hinted that there were details he had chosen not to expose out of respect. The PR team winced at that line, but Sarper didn't care. He wanted impact, not diplomacy. Once he finished recording, he sent the video to his team to schedule the upload for the next morning. When he finally lay down to rest, his heart still pounded, his mind still racing through imagined headlines. Morning arrived with a violent digital shockwave. The moment his video posted, the internet exploded again. Some viewers sympathized with him, arguing he sounded genuine and vulnerable. Others accused him of deflecting, refusing accountability, manipulating the narrative. Comment sections turned into miniature battlegrounds with thousands of replies. He's lying. He's hurting. She deserves better. He's being framed. The argument spread across platforms like wildfire. Shekinah woke to her phone vibrating nonstop. She rubbed her eyes, exhausted, and tapped the screen. Notifications poured in about Sarper's video. She pressed play. As she watched, her expression shifted from disbelief to frustration to a quiet, simmering anger. It wasn't the sadness in his eyes that bothered her. It wasn't even the subtle jabs disguised as emotional explanations. It was the implication, subtle but sharp, that there were things she had done, things left unsaid, things that justified his actions. That implication lit a fire she thought she had already extinguished. Her lawyer called within minutes. "We need to address this," they said. Silence will let his version take root. She knew they were right, but she didn't want more drama. She didn't want another public war. Still, protecting herself meant defending herself, and defending herself meant speaking. She opened her camera app, steadied her breathing, and hit record. Her voice was calm but firm. She clarified facts, refuted subtle lies, spoke about respect, boundaries, and emotional strain. She didn't attack him directly. She didn't need to. The truth was powerful on its own. When she posted the video, it made the internet erupt louder than before. People dissected every facial expression, every pause, every word. Analysts compared timelines from both videos. Influencers chose sides and built content around it, and entertainment news declared it the divorce. War of the year. Fans begged them both to stop. Others begged for more. Shekinah's video gained more traction than Sarper's. Some of his supporters drifted away. Some doubled down. Sarper watched the analytics in frustration growing by the second. Every downward dip felt like a punch to the ego. His manager urged him to step back before things spiraled out of control. But Sarper wasn't stepping back. Not when he felt cornered. Not when he felt misunderstood. Not when he believed there were still truths that could turn the tide. He murmured under his breath, "She wants to play this publicly. Then publicly it will be." Sarper stood in the center of his living room, frustration pulsing through every inch of him as he replayed Shekinah's video again and again. Each sentence felt like a precise strike, calm but cutting, landing exactly where his pride was most fragile. He clenched his jaw as the comments rolled across the screen. Thousands of viewers praising her clarity, calling her brave, calling him deceptive. His phone buzzed relentlessly, but he ignored every message except one, a text from an old friend saying, "Bro, you're losing this. Stop before it gets worse." Losing. The word echoed inside his skull like a taunt. He paced faster, mind racing with possibilities, screenshots he hadn't shared, private conversations he still had stored, moments that could paint a different picture. But releasing those would mean crossing a line he had sworn he wouldn't cross. Still, the pressure built like steam trapped in a sealed container, and he felt the line thinning with every comment accusing him of manipulation. Meanwhile, Shekinah was meeting with her lawyer again, going over the online explosion. She wasn't angry anymore. She was disappointed, deeply, profoundly disappointed that even after the court's ruling, Sarper still wanted to wage war through public perception. Her lawyer urged her to avoid escalating further, reminding her that their goal was healing, not destruction. She agreed. She wanted peace. She wanted distance from the toxicity. But the internet wasn't giving her peace. Fans, reporters, bloggers, all of them demanded more statements, more explanations, more content. Her name trended for the third day in a row, and brands she worked with reached out asking if she was okay, if she planned to address rumors of a secret scandal being hinted at by Sarper's supporters. That phrase bothered her. Secret scandal. What scandal? What narrative were they trying to build now? Across the city, Sarper's team debated whether to proceed with the Phase 2 response, a strategy of releasing carefully selected messages that showed a more complicated dynamic between the two. The PR manager begged him to reconsider, warning that revealing private conversations could backfire. But his ego was bruised, and bruised egos rarely choose caution. As they argued, Sarper scrolled through old messages, stopping at one particular thread, a moment where Shekinah apologized for something minor, something from early in their relationship. It wasn't incriminating, but it could be twisted. And twisting was exactly what he was being pressured to do. His hands hovered over the screen. His conscience pulled one way, his pride the other. After a long, silent moment, he locked the phone and slammed it onto the table. "Not yet," he muttered. "Not unless she pushes me again." That same evening, a major entertainment channel aired a special segment titled The $100,000 Divorce Bombshell. What Really Happened, featuring a panel of analysts who broke down body language from both videos. One analyst claimed Sarper showed signs of hidden guilt. Another insisted Shekinah appeared emotionally exhausted, but honest. The program sparked even more debate, and within an hour, both names were trending globally. Shekinah watched part of the broadcast before turning off the TV with a sigh. She didn't want this. She hadn't chosen this war. All she wanted was closure. But closure felt impossible when millions of strangers kept reopening the wound. She poured herself a glass of water, staring at her reflection in the window. "How did it get this far?" she whispered. On the other side of the city, Sarper watched the same program, growing angrier as the commentators implied. He was lying. "They don't know anything," he snapped at the TV. "They weren't there." His manager urged him to calm down, reminding him that reacting impulsively would only add fuel to the fire. But Sarper felt cornered, and people who feel cornered often lash out. A few hours later, a rumor started circulating online, an unverified claim that Sarper had significant evidence he hadn't yet released. No one knew where the rumor started. No one knew who leaked it. But it spread like wildfire, rekindling curiosity and suspicion. Sarper saw the rumor and felt a surge of power. If people believed he had more to share, maybe he could control the narrative without actually exposing anything. But the rumor also reached Shekinah. Her stomach tightened when she read it. She called her lawyer immediately, asking what they should do if he started releasing private information. "We'll deal with it legally," the lawyer assured her. "But don't let him manipulate your emotions. That's exactly what he wants." She nodded, even though her heart pounded. She thought she had already survived the worst. She had no idea another storm was brewing. Late into the night, Sarper wrote a cryptic post on social media. "There's always more to the story." 6 words. It detonated across the internet like a bomb. Commenters demanded details. Bloggers speculated wildly. Fans chose sides once again. And as the world erupted in questions, theories, and drama, both Shekinah and Sarper braced for whatever came next. The war between truth and perception had only begun, and neither of them realized just how far the fallout would reach. The ripple effect of Sarper's 6-word post was unlike anything either of them had experienced before. Within minutes, reaction channels uploaded emergency videos, TikTok creators stitched his message with dramatic music, and gossip pages began piecing together timelines, screenshots, and wild theories about what more to the story could possibly mean. The speculation grew darker by the hour. Some accused Shekinah of hiding massive secrets. Others claimed Sarper was bluffing to regain control. A few insisted they both had skeletons waiting to explode. And yet, in the middle of the digital chaos, neither Shekinah nor Sarper had moved a muscle online since the post. They were both silent, both watching the storm widen, both unable to sleep. Shekinah paced her living room, staring at her phone every few seconds, terrified that he might leak something, even something harmless, that could be twisted into a weapon. She trusted the truth, but she did not trust public interpretation. She paused at the window, looking out over the city lights, the same city where he was probably awake, plotting his next move. "He won't stop," she murmured. "He never stops." She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, trying to regain control. She had promised herself not to engage again, not to escalate the tension. But if he released anything personal, she would have no choice but to defend herself. Meanwhile, Sarper sat at his dining table surrounded by his team, the glow of multiple screens illuminating their stressed faces. The PR manager rubbed his forehead, exhausted. "Your post has everyone in a frenzy," he said. "If you don't explain it soon, it could look like manipulation." "Not manipulation," Sarper snapped. "The truth. There is more to the story." The manager sighed. "Then show it or drop it. Leaving it hanging only hurts you." But Sarper wasn't ready to show anything. Not yet. He liked having the upper hand. He liked the way people were suddenly demanding his side instead of dismissing it. But the power trip came with a price. Overnight, several major outlets published articles questioning his intentions, asking why he hinted at evidence but refused to reveal it. Some called his behavior emotional extortion. Others accused him of using public pressure to force Shekinah into reacting again. The criticism grew louder, and Sarper felt the shift. He had created a storm, But now he had to control it, and the storm was getting too big. The next morning, Shekinah's phone rang nonstop again. Her best friend urged her to stay calm, not to let the rumors sink into her spirit. But staying calm felt impossible when millions of eyes waited for her to break. She even considered filming another video to clarify things before the rumors got worse. But her lawyer warned her strongly, he wants your reaction. Don't give it to him. Let him be the one to collapse under the weight of his own strategy. Shekinah nodded, even though resisting the urge to speak was agonizing. She put her phone on airplane mode and took a long shower, hoping the water would wash away the anxiety tightening her chest. But even after she stepped out, the fear lingered. What if he actually does it? Across the city, Sarper finally sat alone, scrolling through messages from fans telling him to expose everything, release the screenshots, show the truth. The encouragement fed his ego, but the doubts from his PR team echoed in the back of his mind. One wrong move could destroy him completely. One right move could turn everything around. His finger hovered over the message thread again, the same one he looked at last night, the same one he knew could tilt public perception. But as he stared at the words on the screen, guilt crept into his chest. It wasn't guilt for her, it was guilt for the image he had crafted for himself. Was publicly exposing private moments worth saving that image? Was winning worth losing every ounce of integrity he still had left? He locked the phone again and shoved it into his pocket, frustration boiling inside him. He needed something bigger, something dramatic, but not damaging, to shift public sympathy. And then he got an idea. A dangerous idea. An interview. A full, televised interview where he could speak his truth, cry if he needed to, show vulnerability, frame the narrative in a way that positioned him as the misunderstood, wounded party. His PR manager hesitated, but eventually agreed. This might be their only chance to turn things around. Meanwhile, Shekinah was sipping tea, trying to calm her nerves when she got a notification from a producer she knew. Heads up, the message read. Sarper just booked a primetime interview. Her entire body froze. An interview. A large audience. A platform where he could twist the truth as dramatically as he wanted. Her heart raced with panic, anger, dread. He's going to lie, she whispered. He's going to paint himself as the victim again. Her lawyer assured her they would watch the interview carefully and respond only if legally necessary. But Shekinah knew better. She knew how charming he could be. How convincing. How emotional manipulation was his greatest skill. The world didn't know him like she did, and she feared that the world might believe him again. As the hours ticked by leading up to the interview, tension built online. People speculated what he would say, what he would reveal, whether he would mention the rumor about undisclosed evidence. Hashtags surged again. The internet braced itself, and both Shekinah and Sarper, in different corners of the same city, prepared for a turning point neither of them could escape. The interview lights warmed, the cameras positioned. Sarper adjusted his suit, took a breath, and sat down across from the host. Millions waited. The red recording light blinked on, and the first question was a dagger. Why did the judge order you to pay $100,000? Sarper inhaled slowly. This was it. The moment that would change everything again.